All right, we are live. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Super excited to get into the markets today. I was out last week, so glad to be back. I'm traveling this week as well, so I'll be on and off, but excited to dive into the markets today. Just wanted to throw it out there. Anything that we do discuss here today is not financial advice, it's purely for educational and fun purposes. So, super excited to dive in. Bets, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. I'm ready for hopefully a great week of trading.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the traders market for sure. And
Yes.
so it seems like the holders are not doing the best right now, whether it's the small cap or whatever. But
Yep.
traders are doing fine. Holders are definitely having some issues in the markets right now. So yeah,
Yep.
let's dive into that. I'm gonna try and send out the link
Okay. Yeah,
in as many groups.
I'll pull up Trading View here.
Perfect, perfect.
Uh-oh. I think I did that wrong. Why didn't it work? There we go. Cool. All right. I should have my screen up now on Trading View. It's funny that you say that holders are getting wrecked because I think it also is applying to a lot of the gold and silver buyers
Mhm.
that kind of came in over the last couple months that basically bought the top. So maybe we'll dive into that a little bit because I do have some levels that we need to watch um,
Yeah.
for um, for gold and silver. But yeah, let's look at BTC. But I'll zoom out here a little bit on BTC. So ultimately, BTC is still basically sideways down here. Really between about 60k or so and about 75k. So we've expanded a little bit. We're kind of between like 72, but we've expanded it to the upside. The question is now, it continues putting in higher lows. Like you'll notice that it's not really breaking any structure to the downside this entire time. It has been, however, setting higher highs, and each high has taken out a previous high. To the downside, though, these lows continue to move to the upside. We still haven't really had a breach of any significant low here on BTC, which does tell us that at some point that liquidity will get ran, and there's going to be a lot of it. There's going to be a lot of liquidity under all of this because of the way that these lows are stacking on top of each other, right? So they're not overlapping. So this will be very interesting at some point. The question is, how much longer does BTC go to the upside before that happens? Um, but as they say, the trend is your friend. I think you have to kind of follow what the chart is telling us right now. And right now, it's telling us that it's wanting to respect these lows, and it is working on putting higher highs at the same time. So overall, larger trend is still very much down. So we do have to be aware of that. That even if this, were to get back up here into the 80s, it doesn't invalidate the fact that we are just in a larger, oops, in a larger downtrending structure here overall. So we are still putting in macro lower lows and lower highs at this point as well. So um, we'll let that play out. I do think there's a potential though. Like if we do get a bounce from here, um, from the low that was put in last night or early this morning, and if this can continue, the big levels that I'm watching is obviously previous year low. You'll see it right here, PYL. I still think this is a key area. It was interesting to watch that we rejected from roughly that area here already twice. So maybe third time is the time we get above that. And then slightly above that, we do have the previous quarter low. So that's off of this low here. That is the bottom of the previous 3-month candle for BTC. So if you go to BTC and you've got your 3-month chart on, you'll notice at the bottom of that last 3-month candle, that is that previous quarter low that I've got marked out there. And then the previous year low was coming off of April of last year of 2025. So, and then I do have, here you'll see the high of this current quarter marked out, right? So we kind of know where that is, which was that move to 98K. That's the current high for this quarter. Good chance that's going to stick. So I want to mark that, and I want to be watching that for the next quarter that opens up, because this one does close in 8 days and 6 hours. So here in 8 days and 6 hours, we'll be working on a new quarterly candle. And I want to know where the high of that previous quarter is, as well as where the low of this current quarter, because this will be the low of the previous quarter going into the new quarter. So we'll mark that out as well. But basically right now, it looks like the range after the new quarter opens is going to be basically 60K to 98K. That'll be the previous 3-month range that we'll be watching for either a sweep of the low or a sweep of the high once we're in that new quarter. But right now we're looking at the previous one. So going back to that 4-hour chart, let's look at this. No, we'll leave that alone. So going back here, 80,600. It's a pretty key level. And depending on what exchange you're looking at, if you're looking at Coinbase or like a Kraken or Poloniex or something like that, it might be a little bit different. But here on the Binance chart, it's 80,600. Very key level. And again, I mean, I made a video last week, I think. I don't think it was 2 weeks ago. It had to have been last week, maybe a week and a half ago, but where essentially I was saying that this is like the single level that I'm really watching is this previous quarter low. If in the next 8 days, we get a rocket ship move that comes up here and we open the new month and the new quarter, right? Because the new month will open the new quarter. But if we close above this previous quarter low and we're opening that new month and that new quarter up here, that then increases the probability that we're going to go to that previous quarter high before we roll over potentially, which would be quite the surprise, I think, for a lot of people. So if this were to get up here and we can get that close above, we might still initially reject. We might still initially get a rejection somewhere up here. But as long as we get that close above that previous quarter low, that to me increases the chances that even if we get a pullback, even if we pull back down here to previous year low, somewhere down here, even if we get a pullback, there's a really good chance that price is going to want to come revisit this previous quarter high, which is the current quarter high right now. But when we open that new quarter, that'll be the previous quarter high. We might want to come up. There's a decent chance to sweep that. And if you sweep that to the upside, that could be then what then sends you previous quarter low, because you'll be thinking about it, right? Like you'll have previous quarter high, previous quarter low. You're going to do a fake out in one direction. If the fake out ends up being to the top, then you're going to come and sweep the lows. If you were to come instead and you close above it, but then you somehow get a sweep of the low first, then it's probably going to go to the upside, right? So this will be something I'll be watching for. Again, we're 8 days or so. But if we're up here, even if we open the month with a week or two of correction, but if we get that close above previous quarter, I do think there's a very, very good chance that we're going to be up here at 98K plus, even if it's just to sweep it. Really, this will kind of depend on what happens after we get the close. If we get this close, and let's say that close just rejects us, and then we come all the way back down here to sweep previous quarter low, which is current quarter low. I'm trying to not confuse people, but it'll be previous quarter in the future once this is said and done. If we come and we sweep to the downside, then that could be the low that then shoots us off, and then the move is going to go higher. The move is this. There's a potential. I don't know how likely it is, but there's a potential that if that happens, if we close above previous quarter and then we for some reason come down and sweep down here again, that next move to the upside could be quite surprising to people, even more so than something like that, So that's kind of what I'm watching. Again, that single level that really matters to me is 80,600. We've got 8 days. If in 8 days we're closing the month and the quarter above 80,600, then I have to begin entertaining that we could be running for liquidity above previous quarter high up here, even if there's still a move lower. or that if we do come down and sweep, there could be a move significantly higher. Because then let me zoom out to the 3-month chart just to give you just to illustrate, right? Then on the 3-month chart, very simple. The 3-month chart would then be closing above here. So basically, this would be nothing but a wick to the downside with a tiny body up here. And it would also be above this key structure here, which is where you have a big pivot area, right? So this was March 2024 rejection, broke above it, sits on it back here in 2025, beginning of 2025. If we were to close this current month above 80,600, you would basically be getting another confirmation that this is support, that this entire zone here is support. And I mean, it's hard to believe as it might be, it could be signaling something like that. As crazy as that would be, it really would. It could signal that, because it would depend on that close here. And then you'd have to zoom out and you'd have to say, okay, well, what does my 6-month look like? Well, if your 6-month is up here, you'll then have 3 months basically to maintain above previous 6-month high, which at that point is that same 80,600. So you'll have 3 months to just make sure you stay above 80,600 essentially. And then on the 12-month, if you're above 80,600, you're also above the previous 12-month low, which is currently at 74.5. So again, like this would be, we talk all the time about what would it look like if cycles break in either direction. This could be one way that it does that. So this will be a very, very, very key high time frame chart to be watching here. So, but it starts with the monthly, starts with the quarterly, then it kind of trickles, and you start to shift those much higher time frames. But yeah, for me, that's the single level that I'm really watching is 80,600. We've got 8 days. I want to see what happens. If we're below that, though, I will say if we don't manage to close above that, then we're just sweeping near it up here, and then the draw is 100% to the downside. There's like no doubt about it at that point. It will be a violent move to the downside, violent move to the downside. But that's kind of what I'm watching. I've been watching stablecoin dominance here. I kind of drew this out over the weekend. So far, we've had 2 of the pushes. I'm wondering if it's going to have one more push before it comes back down. Although it's almost here already. If this just melts down and it fills this gap here on stable, then it's probably not getting the 3rd push. But ultimately, I was looking for a move down here for a bounce higher if this is going to play out here. So we'll see what happens with stables. But yeah, right now my focus is just that BTC previous quarter. Depending on what that does, then we can look at ETH previous quarter, Sol previous quarter, because those are all going to do the same thing. They got big levels previous year right there as well. Cardano's kind of doing the same thing. It's got the big levels right above it as well. They're all kind of doing the same thing. And yeah, that little 3-month fractal though, with looking at the high time frames and looking at, because it works even if it's previous quarter, previous day, previous week. Anytime you see those closes within the previous, a lot of times it does start to signal that there's a reversal coming. I mean, we even saw it here. You're starting to slow down. It signaled that you were slowing down, and then sure enough, you got the big move here. For example, if there was the potential here, there still is. This thing could still turn around because you got this blue one that closed within the green one. This could just Bart Simpson back down. So it is something to pay attention to. Doesn't play out 100% of the time, but you'll notice a lot of the time it does play out in both directions, where you get these 3 candle little reversals that tend to happen. So pretty cool stuff. But yeah, I'll kind of hand it off there. I don't know if you have any comments, questions. I see some comments already. Yo, what's up? We got Wolf Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got Kate here. Hi, Kate.
Yeah.
Excited. There was no trading crew this weekend. I was wondering about that. I was off last week, but yeah, I guess we're gonna have a nice little space later today as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, great takes there. I was looking at a bunch of things as well. Looking at, of course, let me actually go ahead and share my chart here.
Sure.
I want to start with a little bit of oh, Kate says thank you. Kate, he says, I feel like I'm in a space listening. All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen here. I gotta share a couple of things. Of course, there's so much happening right now in the world. And so, what I want to talk about just briefly before I get into the charts is this platform. This is, so I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see it here. But this platform right here, Predictive History, I'm really enjoying learning from this guy. His name is Professor Jiang, and he is actually someone who predicted the war that we are in right now. So the good thing about this guy is that, he's almost like a third party, right? In the picture, he's not from Iran, he's not from, the US. I believe he's a Canadian, Chinese, but the takes that he has just very like he's pretty much discussing historical facts and geopolitics, right? So he's not really he's just talking about logic. So I was pretty impressed by what he shared so far and actually listening to some of his videos. It's just he's been on point about what's happening, but he's also looking at it from a geopolitical lens about like each player, right? We have so many countries right now that are fighting. We have GCC countries, we have the US involved in the war, we have Israel in the war, we have Iran. Um, and so all of these countries, we have Kuwait, Iraq, all of these players. And so what this guy is really talking about is how each of these countries play a role into this and what do they take from it, right? Like maybe there are certain alliances that are being formed. Maybe those alliances are not going to be long lasting. Um, but because each player has a certain benefit that they're taking, so I do definitely encourage you to take a look at this. He has a YouTube channel, so which has a link here, so you can actually check it out. Not a ton of stuff on his X. I'm just sharing X because that's what I'm on. But YouTube, you could definitely take a look at. He has a channel listed here, and give him a follow. Of course, keep your notifications on. I have them, as you can see, and then just look at some of his old videos. He's pretty incredible. He's going through game theory right now, which is important to understand, but lots of great information on his channel. So I'm really learning about history, about geopolitics, right? I was a techie, so I didn't really have much interest in history and politics early on, but it's important to understand a lot of these things that he's saying, and then also how it relates to what North Star has been talking about. The global rotation and all of those things. When you kind of watch, this guy, everything just. It's like, oh wow, how did I not see this coming? Because remember, some of his videos are a little bit older, right? So you could go back and he's talking about the tension as it was happening, and before the war, he's talking about it, and also exactly what's going to happen in the war, right? Like everybody's freaked out right now. Oh, the nukes are going to be used. It's like, yeah, but there is actually like an escalation that happens before we get to that point. So he's explaining all of that. So wanted to throw it out there. Definitely give him a follow, and check out the YouTube channel. So that's one thing. And then the second thing, I'll start with the USDT and USDC dominance. Definitely looking at the chart right now, and I mean, whenever I'm seeing patterns like this, right? Whenever you see something like this is bearish. And so right now, again, I'm looking at. I'm putting my long-term biases aside just to kind of see what's happening in the short term, right? And so what this kind of pattern tells me, unless, miraculously we are able to get above this on the weekly, this could potentially, like whenever I'm seeing something like this on M15, this is a bearish pattern temporarily, right? Not permanently, but temporarily, which means USDT, USDC dominance potentially uh, hitting maybe these levels here, right? This one or this one, and then reversing and then going up,
Which
of course. Which,
which does align with the move higher for BTC, which is kind of what we're talking
yeah,
about, right? So yeah.
yeah, exactly, absolutely. So this is why, like a lot of times, this chart on USDD, USDC dominance clears things up for me on where we are headed for BTC. Now, when we look at BTC, um, it's if I was looking at just this chart, I would not be bullish, right? Why? Because of this pattern, which is funny because when you inverse it, it tells you a different story, which is why it's important to look at that USDT and USDC dominance. And so, of course, what happened this morning was Trump tweeted that he is interested in talking to Iranians to bring some peace into the world. So, and then of course, Iranians are rejecting that there has never been any conversation like this. So we'll see. But it was very significant, right? That it was before the market opened or around that time. And then we saw big moves. We saw Bitcoin going up. We saw oil crashing a little bit, right? Oil needs to crash a little bit. It will give us a good entry, right? But this one here, again, we closed under 200 EMA. Now, last week or the week before, actually, we were talking about a few potential trades. So we'll look at how these worked out. So I'm going to go back to those trades right now. Okay, so the first trade so first of all, of course, we have the range, right? You guys remember the range that we drew? This was drawn in February, the first week of February. I'm going to keep repeating that. So we had this high and this range was drawn first week of February. That price is going to be consolidating within this range for a long time, and we are seeing that, right? We've seen it almost 2 months now. It's going to be like if we are still in this range until the end of the month. But a couple of trades that I had that I was like, okay, these are the trades that I'm going to be looking at. So I had my sell order triggered right here. So this was actually a trade that I also called in Alpha Seedlings if you're there. And also I called it live that when the price comes here, this will be a really beautiful breakout setup. And look at what happened. And then of course I did say that your stop loss was going to go here. Your first take profit was going to be here. And so I did, and then of course you had this level as well. Now this level I was a little bit more like whenever you are seeing another pattern developing, you could either keep this trade, especially if the take profit is there, or take some profit there because there's going to be an upside, and then maybe leave like a moon bag on to also catch the move to the downside. But it becomes weaker because you already had one trade that you're coming out of this one, right? This one pattern was broken. So for it to have two breakouts without having a bounce, that could be a little bit dangerous. And that's what we actually saw it play out. But this trade was pretty good. If you took this trade with me, good one. And so I basically took my profits here, some of it, and then I left a moon bag basically. And so that was actually a good one. I did get out because I'm pretty aggressive in how I'm taking profit. I think it was like somewhere around here, if I'm not mistaken, or something around somewhere around here. But did not catch the full move. But I was happy with that, with whatever I caught, right? So you have to be very aggressive in taking profit. And today's kind of tells you, because remember what I said and what I keep saying is that we are way overdue for a green monthly candle, right? We had 5 consecutive monthly red close. We are going into the 6th one right now. And so there has to be some sort of an upside. We need to get, it becomes risky when you're shorting at these levels, which is why I am very cautious and taking profits very aggressively. So let's look at this one, right? So those were 2 really beautiful trades. And also, of course, if you did take this trade at the high, which I did not, this was a pretty awesome trade as well. Now, what I'm looking at next for the breakout levels, I'm going to see how the patterns are forming. If it was to reverse here right now, right, which it can, then this is the level that I'm watching for. I'm going to be setting my my sell order here, right? And this one as well. This is a fine one. So this is probably going to be broken first, if we get there. We'll have to see what kind of patterns are forming at this level. And if we could get below this, then of course, this is a pretty awesome breakout level. So I think this is going to be a much stronger level, right? You have almost like a triple bottom here. So we'll see when the price gets there. But this is one level to watch, and right now this is another one. I'm not liking this one just because the pattern is not super clear.
Looks like it wants to
So
BART,
that's
but
huh?
so it does look like it wants to just BART back down.
Yeah, yeah,
High time frame
yeah. I mean, it can.
looks okay still though, but yeah, that I'm not crazy about that Bart Simpson looking thing, head and shouldery.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this one. Like if
Yeah,
it does move over here, like it will be interesting. Also because remember this move was very much, what would
news.
you
It's
call
just
it?
news driven.
News driven. And also
Yeah.
the news was not it wasn't a very good news either. It was like, okay, yes, we
Yeah.
are we are starting to talk to Iran now, and we've had a very good, very productive discussion with them. And Iran is going, wait, we never had any discussion, and they're continuing with the war. And so this was a pretty much a news-driven event. Um, again, so I'm just not too thrilled about it. But again, like looking at USDT dominance and USDC dominance, comparing it to where we are at with Bitcoin, and then
Right.
again we are overdue for for a green month. It's gonna be very interesting, right? So if I take a short
Yeah.
position, let's say if I do take this breakout here, it's gonna be your stop loss is gonna be here, your take profit is gonna be somewhere around here, right? 1 to 1. Very good, very quick 1 to 1 trade. That's what it's gonna be. And then probably keep the moon bag open to catch the move to the downside here. So when you have two levels like this, right, back to back, it becomes a little bit scary because this level may not hold at that point, right? Or this level may actually hold, or it will break, but it will give you like the stop hunt before it breaks. So one way to play it would be you get in here, right? You take your partial profits wherever that 1 to 1 is, right? Equivalent of this, where your stop loss is here. So your take profit will be somewhere around here, probably this level, right? So you take your profit here, most of it, and then leave the moon bag on, and then of course you wait for the price to come back down here and maybe make a move like this, right? So it will come back down, maybe get up here once again, and then crash over. So second move would be the one to get in, just like how we saw right here. And you could actually go back and look at a lot of charts whenever you have patterns close. Like, this one was here, we had this one. So when it breaks and price comes back here, you're going to get a little bit of a downside, but then it also had this upside, right? It would not reach your stop loss if you're cautious here, but it got super close to that. Like if you were to take this trade, it got super close to your stop loss. And so in that case, you just let this move play out. And then maybe on the second move, you put a stop order, a sell order, in which case it will get triggered when the price comes back down again. If not, I mean, it will just continue to move up, right? It won't matter anymore at that point. But it did give you that 1 to 1 trade on the second move, if you could see, like this one, quick move down, and then your stop loss was going to be up above this candle here. So uh, that's basically how you play these breakout trades. And then, of course, this was another level right here. And so it would be the same thing when the price is coming back down. Maybe you want to wait a little bit and then get in, on the second move. And so like this one, right? So it did this, went up. So if I had another basically breakout to maybe either a retest or going up, and you catch this move, it would have given you this 1 to 1 trade. So these breakout trades I'm seeing, they are working out pretty good. They have a very high win rate as well. So of course it's not gonna be always the case. It's not gonna be 100% hit rate, but you're gonna get super close to that with these. And you don't need to catch every move. I mean, 1 to 1, if you're getting a few trades a week, 2 to 3 trades a week, that's fine, right? First, if this one, I take this one, I don't necessarily have to catch this one either, right? I'm just good with this one. It's okay. Give me 1 to 1. I'm gonna wait for the next one. So that's basically how you play it. But yeah, that's really what I'm looking at. And then of course, let's look at gold. I mean, it's been a while since we've looked at it. Let's see. So gold had a really nice 200 EMA retest as well as the yearly open. So will be interesting to see if this level actually holds and we get to see a move to the upside. I was also looking at silver, and for silver, I was actually hoping that we get maybe around 55 or so, $55 or something like this. And so this was the level that I was watching. But as you can see on 200 daily, it's already making a move to the
Yeah.
upside. So will be very interesting to see how it closes. Of course, on weekly, to me, it looks like it's probably has a further downside here as well.
Yeah, remind me
So
to come back to silver chart here later before we wrap up today.
yeah,
Silver and gold.
yeah. Would love to get your opinion on that one. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then, of course, we had U.S. oil. This was
Big hit.
purely news driven.
Uh,
um, Yeah, but remember, this is exactly the same chart that we are looking at for BTC or sorry, USDT stablecoin dominance,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
It's looking very similar. And so we're like somewhere here or
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It's very toppy. So when you see something like that, it means Bitcoin is going to pump temporarily, right? Long term, of course, until the end of the year. I'm bearish on that one, but we can see some upside
Yeah.
here pretty soon, which will be nice for small caps, memes, all of those things. But this one, I am watching oil potentially maybe retesting this area here. Maybe
That
this
would be
one or
very
this one.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because Trump has made sure that we are not going to be in the 5 day. There's going to be a 5 day block on any infrastructure hit for Iran. So U.S. is not
Right.
going to strike Iran's infrastructure for the next 5 days. And it's funny because we started this deadline Monday morning and it ends on Friday. So when the markets are closed, right? So during the next 5 days, it's like, yeah, Trump's got it, he's got it, right? And so we could potentially see a move a little bit down further because we do need a little bit of a correction here, right? This was a pretty aggressive move to the upside, and so you want to see some downside at this point. So we'll see if this one was the bottom here, or if we could come back here and maybe retest some of these levels, which is your monthly open here. You have a nice little gap as well right here. So maybe this gap can fill and we can get a nice little trade, off of this level as well. So this is definitely a level that I'm watching. It's also going to be a pretty important level here, right? You had, let me actually draw it out here. So you had a lot of stuff happening here. Okay. So if you look at it, right, you have significant activity at this level, like price being choppy. You could go as far as this right here. So lots of stuff happening here, lots of
Yeah.
liquidity. So major zone, like on daily chart, if you can even go back, like, as far as you want here. So I think we could maybe potentially fill this gap
Yeah.
and maybe get us a nice little trade here at 67 to 60 to maybe 70, right? So we'll
That'd be
have to see
beautiful.
if that
Yeah.
it would be really nice, yeah.
N-
So
That
and
that'll
then
be where all the people that bought the top, that bought at 100 or above 90, they'll be exiting their position. They'll be taking profits at 60 on their
yeah.
on their logs.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely. A lot of people are their stop losses are
Mm.
going to be our entries, right?
Oh man. Yeah.
But
Sadly.
yeah, this is yep. That's how it goes. So this is what we are looking at. I mean, war is exhausting for all sides. So everybody's gonna act like a lion, and then everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, what have we done here? We gotta stop." Everybody's gonna think like that, right? So maybe we will see more, Iran maybe coming to the table. Hey, yeah, we want to talk, we want to discuss. If that was to happen, of course, oil is gonna get crushed. BTC is gonna pump. S&P 500 is gonna pump. So looking at all of this, this is a good one. So oil definitely keeping an eye on this one, right? It doesn't have to do that, but I would like for it to close this gap here, and then we'll see what happens. But weekends are, like this gap tells you, weekends are significant. So just going into next weekend is it's gonna be interesting. And then of course, if there was a significant step that the U.S. has to take, it's probably going to happen over the weekend as well, just to minimize some of the impact and the fallout over during the markets open. So we'll see how that all works out. But I'm watching oil chart, very similar to, like I said, BTC or stablecoin dominance weekly. This is exactly how it looked like, chopping here and then crashing under. So
Yeah.
that's gonna be an interesting week. All right. That's really what I have. Like I said, BTC, I'm not interested in taking any trades right now other than the breakouts. Those are the best ones with the highest win rate, as you can see. I mean, it's not a secret. You guys could see I'm telling you beforehand what I'm taking. So you guys follow those trades. It's really, really incredible. And longs are going to be continue to be risky, right? Because we're still in the barrier, but it's not to say that we're not going to catch a little bit of an upside here in the next few days. So we'll see. Yeah, anything Spritz that you want to add before I'm going to hand it over to you. You say you're going to go over the silver?
Yeah, I might as well because I had a chart that I had shared, and that move's mostly done. Let me go into silver. Can't remember if it was a daily chart. Can't remember exactly what it was. It might have been this one. Here, and I'll take off some of this noise. But this was again, this is kind of that just simply understanding like previous sweeps of previous month high, and then the draw is to like previous month lows. That's basically what we had up here. You had this high here for February, and at the beginning of March, you basically had a move up that swept the February high here, right? And then you move to February low, and it's now taking that out. So we're, in terms of this like month to month range, that's pretty much cleaned out. This could work its way back up. I don't think it's coming back up here personally. I think the high for silver is very likely in, at least for the foreseeable future here. Let me clean up some of the downside stuff. But I think that this is probably still going to continue moving towards the downside. But it doesn't mean it can't, it can't work its way up a little bit. It could, if we're looking at this current month, there's 8 days and 3 hours left on this month. Depending on where this ends up closing, you are currently still well within the previous month, but at this point we've taken the high, and then we've just now recently taken the low. So we're kind of waiting for a little bit more information here in that sense. Or you have to zoom out, right? But if you're looking for like a monthly time frame or below, I think you got to wait for more info, because this thing on the lower time frames could start moving away back up. It could even sweep this high here of that previous month. But look, I think if we go to like a 3-month chart, this is pretty telling. So you've got 8 days essentially here on this 3-month chart remaining before this quarterly candle closes. That is not a pretty close on a quarterly level. That's quite ugly. This is not a good quarterly close. And if this closes in the next 8 days within the previous quarter, so a very easy way to do that is you just come over here, grab the high of the last quarter, mark that out, and then go ahead and grab the low of that last quarter, right? But this is your previous quarter range, essentially, high of previous quarter, low of previous quarter. If we close inside of this range, you've taken out liquidity to the upside of that quarter. Why wouldn't you come and take the liquidity to the downside of that quarter? Why wouldn't it be anything just like this? Same thing, right? You were expanding, quarter closes within the previous quarter. What did you do? You went to the downside. You took previous quarter low. You had already taken quarter high. You took quarter low. Same thing here. Same thing happened there. And it's that simple three candle fractal, right? Same thing there. Took it. You move to the bottom. So very simply put, if in 8 days we're not above on silver, 82.67, right? $82.67. If you're not above that, there's a really, really high probability that you're going to move towards the low of that previous quarter, which is down here at like $45, $46. Very, very good chance. Even if you don't go all the way down there, I'd say there's a pretty good chance that you at least move towards like that 50% level again, which is where the low of this current quarter is. So even if it doesn't go all the way down, even if this comes up, it's very likely that it's going to sweep this low again. So you'll be sweeping the low that was just recently put in again at some point. So it could look something like maybe this comes back up and then just does that one more time, and then you're trying to see what happens after that. But very, very good chance that downtrend continues, right? If we close below that previous quarter high, you'd kind of be confirming that there's more energy to the downside remaining still on that chart. So, and then here's the problem, right? Let's say there's 8 days and 3 hours. So in the next 8 days, you close this here. Okay. So the next 8 days, you close this here. This then starts over the next 3 months, the new 3 months, this starts to then work its way down, right? So let's say it gets down here to about like halfway of this quarter here. Like, let's say it's down here in like the mid 50s. Well, if it starts moving down towards the mid 50s over the next new 3 months, then if you go to the 6 month chart, what that's going to mean that in the next, in the remaining 3 months that you have on the 6 month candle, you're going to be getting further away from your prior 6 month high, which happens to be that same level. That same level that's the current level to get above for previous quarter is the same level for the prior 6 months. Same level you need to break on a 6 month basis is the same level you got to break on a quarterly basis. It's actually the exact same level you need to break on a yearly basis as well. So that's a very, very, very important level to the upside. 82.67 on the silver futures chart is the level to close above on a quarterly, on a 6 month basis, and on a 12-month basis if we don't want to see price going significantly lower. But let's go back to the 6 month, right? So let's assume we get a bad quarterly close and we're starting to move down towards the bottom. This is that previous quarter low. So we're moving down towards the previous quarter low because we didn't close above previous quarter high, right? So now we're working our way over the next 3 months towards previous quarter low. Well, what ends up happening is then you start running out of time on your 6 month candle, right? So if it takes 2 months for us to get kind of close to this, you're only going to be left with about a month left on your 6 month candle to get back above what would now on this one not just be your previous quarter high. Now you're talking about the previous 6 month high as well, right? Which is also the previous 12-month high. Like that is the level to get above up here. But if we're moving towards this, now you're going to be all the way down here with a month or months remaining to get all the way back up here to invalidate a move towards the 6 month lows. So then you say, okay, well, let's mark out my 6 month lows. So here's my 6 month low for silver. So now you're working your way towards here. Let's say then because you start running out of time, even if this were to bounce, you don't get back above. You don't get back above that level that you need to be above, ultimately confirming that then in the remaining 6 to 9 months that are going to be left on a 12-month candle, you're going to start working your way towards the 6-month low. And then you go to the 12-month candle, and then you're like, okay, now more time has passed. But now you're working your way over here towards that 6-month low, and there's only currently 9 months left on the 12-month candle. By the time all this happens, you could only have a quarter left in the year, and you got to get all the way back above this exact level of, again, this 82,670 to invalidate essentially a bearish yearly close, a horrible looking yearly close, which would be leading you towards 12-month lows and potentially even lower, right? Because then you'd have this 12-month low here that you'd start trapping towards for liquidity, right? So you see how this works, right? And it's the same thing that happened here. Notice, right? Very, very, very simply put here, you had price that was moving up, expanding upward, and then you had this. You had a 12-month candle that closed within the body or the range of the previous 12-month. What ended up happening over the next couple of years? You went back to the beginning of that 12-month candle and below, right? Because you got a bad 12-month close. So if we get a bad quarterly close, which turns into a bad 6-month close, which then ultimately leads to a bad 12-month close, I think we're looking down here again. I think we're looking down here. There's a huge zone here based on the volume profile that you can see here for silver, back down under 20 even. As hard as that is to believe right now. But look, even if you just wanted to put a volatility channel and just say, well, what would my volatility range be if the top is in? If the top is currently in and silver needs to go to the bottom of the channel, that still puts you down here under $30. Puts you under $30 still for silver. So, and look, interestingly enough, I was just sharing in the chat as well that I ended up reading actually that North Star, we talk about North Star all the time, right? North Star's partner, because he's got a partner in his business, right? So it's North Star and his partner Patrick. But he shared this. He shared this exact chart, which lines up with my way of looking at this. Why won't it let me paste this? Hold on here. Hold on here. We're gonna get it. We're gonna get it. We're gonna get it. Hold on here. Oh my God. Hold on. I might have to just share the freaking screen here. Why won't it let me do this? I want to. What if I do save image, just downloads? What if I do this? Yeah, because I don't know why it won't let me share this. Hold on here. 1 second. Aha! It worked. Okay, let's do this. Check this out. So this is what Northstar's partner in his business shared. He basically said the same thing. That you have these big parabolic moves, and then it comes down and it builds support, and it parabolic moves, build support. We've had the parabolic move. He's calling for a pullback here to about $30 to finish this kind of
Oh,
cup
wow.
and handle thing. And then he's saying that after that, we'd have a target of 275. This is perfectly in line with what I'm talking about. And this is the North Star team that we always talk about. And we give them so much credit for being accurate to the upside. Are we going to fade them with what they're saying is coming to the downside? I'm not.
No,
Right. If I
absolutely
think
not.
someone is smart and valuable in their analysis, I'm not just paying attention to the stuff that makes me feel good. I'm paying attention to the stuff that goes against maybe what I'm looking for. So um, but I see the same thing when I look at this. That's exactly what I see when I'm looking at silver. So to sum it up, it starts with the 3 month. We've got 8 days. We've got 8 days, and this will apply the same for any asset class. Go look at you're coming up to a big close. The quarterly close is a big deal. If we're closing this quarter within the previous quarter's range, then there's a very good likelihood you're going to see a move potentially to the low of the previous quarter, at least to the 50% mark, but potentially to the low of the previous quarter. And then you have to ask yourself, well, how much time would that move take? Because then you also want to look at what's remaining on your 6-month candle and what's the low that you could go to in a 6-month range, and then how much is remaining on a 12-month candle and what's the low of that 12-month range, because you could ultimately be looking at big corrections for some of these. So but yeah, that's essentially what I've got to share here on silver. So I think we're coming up to a big level. There's a really good chance that silver top is in. There's a really good chance that even if it does have more upside, that ultimately it looks like a year or so of movement to the downside, followed by something like that,
Mhm.
later on. So yeah.
Yeah, which will be interesting. It's quite a few theories around that too. Obviously there's a pretty ugly yearly close for BTC, and so if silver was in something
Mm.
like this long
Mm-hmm.
term, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no. Speaking
Yeah.
of North Star, I do have a couple of other things as well that I want to talk
Go
about
for it.
because I was looking at some of this stuff. Anything else you want to share, Bits, before I do that?
No, no, I just wanted to really cover that, like this high time frame idea of how to like look at the ranges and how to basically um it's definitely speculating because you have to imagine what that close is going to look like if you get it, and then imagine what that then looks like on the next time frame and the next time frame. But this is how you start to kind of piece together some of this high time frame stuff, and it's ultimately what led me to basically share this silver move, which was basically I gave I gave the basically the trade for a 30% short here, off of this high. You could have taken that, after the sweep, and you would have played a 30% or so short on silver off of just understanding previous month high, previous month low, and how liquidity moves from one side of the range to the other side. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Those levels are significant. Love that. Thank you, Bits.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was actually looking at a few things as well, and I'm going to share my chart. This is S&P 500. So going back to what North Star has been talking about, right, for capital rotation
Hmm.
theory, and he's been sharing 150 years of data, which is
Yeah.
incredible. And so one thing that I was looking at was how the markets play out whenever we are in capital rotation. How long do we stay in it? How long, if there's a bearish asset, how long is it going to be in the bear market? And it's pretty much consistent with 2 to 3 years. And so you're going to have to go back to, like, we had, he's talking about 1930. That was the first year, right? And so that one, and actually, let me go ahead, and I'm going to stop sharing it here. I'm going to bring up something real quick. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go back uh, to something that he basically talked about. So I want to make sure that I'm not missing any context here. So this is what basically Northstar has pinned on his X account. And these are the dates that he was talking about, right? 1930, 1972, 2002, and now. So the question is, when we hit these capital rotation dates, what happens? Like, how many years are we going to be in the bear market in certain assets? And so first, Bitcoin did not exist in 2002, right? So this is the first time that Bitcoin is going through the capital rotation, and it's acting more like S&P 500 than other assets. That's an important one to remember. At least that's how we see it, right? A lot of us, we are like, oh, if the stock markets are pumping, that's good for Bitcoin. But still, this is the first time it's going through this capital rotation. So we have to watch and see what actually happens this cycle. That's going to be very important to remember. And then the second thing is, when we are going through the cycle, we also have to remember the yearly chart. We can't forget that. So this also gives me a little bit of more, I guess, evidence that this time it could be different, right? I've always said that. Of course, expecting October to be the bottom, but with capital rotation, the data that you have, that's 150 years of data. You can see it on S&P 500. You cannot see it on Bitcoin, but you could relate to that. And so I'm going to be very cautious going into the bottom this year, right? Very, very cautious. But these were the dates that he posted. And you can actually start looking at what happened. So in 1930, you actually had a top that was created basically in summer or towards the end of 2029, right? So maybe like summer and fall of 2029. And then it crashed for actually multiple years and did not really bottom out until, 1932, or you could even argue that it was 1933, because it was basically the same structure, right? It was still in the range. So prices stayed in this range for a while, but it was basically a couple of years. And then we can go back and check 72 and 74. And so when you go back to that, it was actually 2 years, like I mentioned, 72 to 74, because I did look into that. So let's see. It was actually this one, right? So when he said 72, it actually was really 73, but it crashed quite a bit as well until about end of 74. So that was pretty interesting as well. Right? So just basically 2 years is what we're seeing here. And then we had 2000, of course, right? So we could go back and we can check what happened in 2000. Okay. So this one, right? So this was basically also like from 2000 to about end of 2002. You could also argue around 2003, right? Beginning of 2003. So again, 2 to 3 years is what we are seeing. And so what makes us think it's going to be any different this time if it's the same capital rotation, right? And so that means we are you're just creating a top. And if if this was the top, January of 2026, are we talking about crashing until maybe the end of 2028 or something like that, right? Or beginning of 2028, at least 2 years. So those are a few things that we need to remember. So of course you have the whole year this year, you have the whole year next year, then what's going to happen after that? But is it going to be different this time to where this is it? Because that's what we are being told, right? It's all good, everything is okay. We're going to have a talk with Iran, everything is going to be fine. Is it really going to be fine? And so, just a few things to remember. But a lot of times events come in later, right? Like 1970, the capital rotation didn't start until about 1972, but the top was already in place prior to that. Same with a couple of other incidents. So if this was the top, what are some of the other events that are going to get us there? So very interesting set of data that I wanted to share. Like I said, I'm not an expert on capital rotation. I'm learning. I have absolutely no issue saying if there's an area that I don't have expertise on. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. So I'm a student of capital rotation, and I'm just finding it fascinating. So we'll
Yeah.
see. This is also, remember, this is the first time we're all going through capital rotation cycles. So the lessons we're going to take from this are going to be so important. So we better be paying attention to all of this. So when this happens again over, in the next 20 years in our lifetime, then we are ready for that and we are ready to benefit from it,
Yeah.
which is why I'm paying so much attention to this, which is why I'm studying it so much, right? So this
Yeah.
is not the time to be arrogant or know it all. It's actually learn. This is what we all do. We are all learning something every single day. So this is a good
Yeah.
one to learn. But yeah, that's really what I had. Anything, Bits, you want to say?
No, look, I mean, I've been pretty clear that I'm kind of really digging into practicing and studying the like that 3 candle fractal on the high time frame, right? And
Hmm.
understanding those liquidity rotations as well from, 1 quarter high to a quarter low, same thing. So, call it power of 3, call it AMD, call it, turtle soup, whatever you want to call it. I mean, everyone calls it a little bit different, but I think they're all talking about the same thing, which is just this understanding price ranges and then the way liquidity moves within those. So yeah, I think you have to be learning something. If you think you've got it all figured out, man, I think you've got something coming. I think you've got a humbling on the
Yeah.
horizon for you. Because I've had periods where I've like, yeah, I've got it figured out. Like I'm set. This strategy is gonna last me forever, and I'm set now. And then the market humbled me and quickly realized, okay, no, there hasn't been one single strategy that I've been able to just repeat and not have to tweak, not have to learn, not have to do anything else, and then just be set. It doesn't work that way. Otherwise, we'd just program some bot to just do that strategy forever, and then you'd be rich and you'd be done and you'd be set, right? And you can go just live on the beach all day and drink coconut water and whatever else, right? But it doesn't work like that. The market changes. The market changes. The dynamics change. So mm, yeah, capital rotation, all this stuff, the long term stuff is fascinating. It- I think one of the biggest reasons a lot of people, I mean, I think even on this stream, we had a couple sessions, right, Lady Trader, when silver first started pumping,
Oh
where
yeah.
people were losing their minds, like, dude, silver's moving like a meme coin. And it's like, well, have you not looked at silver's long term chart? It always pumps like a meme coin. This is what it does. It gets a big vertical move and then it goes sideways for years. And then it goes big vertical move and then it goes sideways for years. But, those people that were asking that, they probably hadn't looked past, I think a lot of people haven't really looked at a chart for an asset past maybe the last 5 years, let alone the last 10 years. So you imagine like how few people have gone back and looked at 100-year chart, 200-year chart, and really understood like, man, there's a lot that happens over a long time frame. But yeah, we just, I don't know if it's arrogance. I don't know if it's immaturity or what it might be, but people think that, oh, this time is different. And, what happened in the past is not going to happen again and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, it's not going to be exactly the same, but people are people. I remember that's one of the biggest lessons my dad that really like stuck from what my dad would tell me when I was younger. It's like, man, you think because you've got all this different technology, you think because y'all dress different, you listen to different music, because you think because you have the internet and all this stuff that you think that I don't know what I'm talking about. Like he would tell me, you think I don't understand like the stuff that you're gonna go through. You think I don't understand how the world works. And when I was younger, I was foolish. I thought he didn't. And as I get older and I get wiser, I start to see just how wise my dad really was, in that he understood that people are people and people don't really change all that much. We go from reading newspapers to listening to radio to watching, black and white, the tube television, to watching color, to now streaming, and to now social media. But it's the same people, the same fear, the same greed. Uh, it's all the same emotions, just done through a slightly different way.
Yeah,
So yeah, markets are fascinating, but people don't change all that much. The world doesn't change all that much.
that is true. Very true. Man, the biggest trade right now that I'm looking at, Bits, is like S&P 500. Just it's it's incredible where we are at right now.
Yeah,
Um, I actually closed my screen here. Give me 1 second, but just keeping that in bits. You're so right about that. Like I remember, the older you get, the more you can kind of relate to what your parents were saying. My
Yes.
father was the one who actually told me, like he literally said when Bitcoin first came out, he said, just put $1,000 into Bitcoin, forget about it for 10 to 15 years. Man, if
Yep.
I had done that, like the biggest lesson of my life. I hope that I'm able to have the same amount of wisdom
Yep.
to get into some of those newer assets like the way that he spotted.
Sure.
But he was so right about that. I would have been set for life if I had, when you're young and dumb, you're like you're the smartest person alive, right? You're not gonna
Yeah.
think about what your dad is telling you. You're gonna be like, oh no, it's I'd rather put this into a stock, memes, or a what do you call it, the small market cap stocks,
Yeah.
um OTC penny stocks, right? So I bought penny stocks instead because, of course, how could that be right? But yeah, that was really really dumb. But you learn as you grow. That's how it works. But this one here, you have this particular area on monthly chart. So I'll be watching to see if there is a potential trade at this level. Right, you have this little gap. So really, anywhere from here to here is going to be a level to watch potentially for a short. But bits, like if that capital rotation is what we are in right now, with 2 years of crash,
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to be incredible risk to reward ratio, even if we were to enter now.
Yeah, I'm watching it. I'm really curious if we're gonna get one last sweep of those highs.
Yeah,
I'm not super clear yet.
yeah,
Not
this one right here.
super clear yet, but yeah, because I mean, even on like the quarterly chart for I'm looking at Nasdaq. So we've got 8 days on Nasdaq. Yeah,
Oh
but
my
even
gosh, yeah,
then, you're closing below. You're within and below the previous quarter's body for sure.
mhm.
S&P is the same way, huh?
Yeah,
Where's my SPX chart?
man, this is going to be bad.
Yeah, 6-month
Really
chart. What does
bad.
a 6-month look like? Yeah, 6-month looks bad too. Yeah, I mean, in the short term, you could, maybe there's a little bit of relief to the upside in the short term.
Mhm.
Again, like my theory would be the first like week or two of a new month and a new quarter could
Mhm.
go against the larger trend, and that kind of sets your trap for the
Yeah.
remainder, right? So even maybe the first month even of the first quarter of the new quarter, sorry, the first month of a new quarter could set like the trap for the remainder of the quarter. So I am looking at it through the lens of, okay, could we pump for a week or two, maybe even a month,
Mhm.
and then essentially set the trap for the remainder of the quarter to move back, to the downside. So
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And you have some important levels. Like I was watching this one right that I called out, which is basically your
hmm
gap, fair
hmm
value gap. But I mean, look at it. You have the yearly open here. You have the
Yep.
monthly open. So if you have the monthly open, what's
Yep.
stopping you from just making a move up? Especially looking at Bitcoin dominance or stablecoin dominance. Looking at
hmm
Bitcoin chart, this could move up here maybe, and then give us a nice trade. So your stop loss would be again here. Your
Yeah.
entry will be somewhere here. So I'm definitely watching, see if there's a way that I could play this one, maybe through options
Yep.
or something like that. Um, I don't have any. I used to be an options trader. I have absolutely zero exposure right now to
We need
any
to
options.
talk to I mean, I need to talk to Nat a little bit more because I want that girl to help me. Maybe with some like longer dated stuff. Because I really haven't done a lot with options. I understand them on a
Yep.
base level, but I haven't really. I've been more of a futures guy, so I think that there's probably a lot of money I'm leaving on the table in options.
Man, it's crazy amount of money. I mean, the risk is so low and reward
Mm,
can be so great if you know what you're doing. I used to
um,
do leaps as well. I know Nat does leaps.
yep.
Leaps are great, especially if you're following historical data on Bitcoin and you're gonna
Yep.
get into miners and
Right.
all of that. But yeah, maybe we could do like an options trading session at
Yep.
some point. But I'll be looking to buy puts when we get to these levels. I definitely want to get that.
What I'm looking at a lot, and I think we need to maybe do a session on. And again, this could be something that we can line up with North Star. But I've been looking at soft commodities, and this kind of came off of North Star's suggestion because he did put a post out there saying, "Hey, you might want to start watching some of these soft commodities. So I have been looking at different ways to get exposure to corn, wheat, cane, soybean, um, stuff like that, right? Coffee, uh, cocoa, stuff like that. And there's like ETFs, there's like futures stuff that you can play on some of these. There's funds that you can participate in as well. There's actually a few that are like what's it called, like a 2x ETF or something like that. I don't know exactly like how it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's basically like a higher risk, higher exposure way to play some of these. So and it gives you a pretty aggressive, like for corn, for example. If you're looking at corn, you could look at CXRN. That's the one I actually had on screen earlier, CXRN. But that's a 2x daily corn ETF, I believe. But there's one for wheat as well and stuff like that. Because some of those, man, you start looking at some of those charts for some of those commodities like that, they could be getting ready to have a silver style pump, like some kind of meme coin style pump to the upside as well. So yeah, I'm trying to get about as much exposure as I can to all that stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll definitely be bringing some of these guests over. But
Yep.
yeah, this was a uh, great stream today. Bates Ryan says Friday of the Friday expiration.
The
Yeah,
expiry. Yeah.
this one, yeah, the option expiration date. So you have to that those are good too. Like when you are trading options, you are in the know of when the options are expiring and all of that, and you can
Yep.
position yourself accordingly. So it's pretty awesome. But yeah, this was a great session today. I will
Yeah.
be out on Wednesday. I'm traveling and possibly on Friday. We'll see. Hopefully I'm not
Okay.
gone on Friday. But we'll be hoping to do a FOMO Friday at least with everybody. We'll figure out how to do that, and then
Yeah.
of course. Bits will be doing his live streams throughout the week, so make sure that you're following the guy
I've
and
been slacking. I
following.
need to get back on it. I've been slacking, Lady Trader. You got to motivate me. I need to get back to at least like 3, 4 a week. Oh God, but it's just
Mhm,
been number one, the market's been kind of just crappy. And it's like I feel like I'm talking about the same thing every day. But
mhm.
yeah, I don't know. This week I'm gonna try and kick it up a notch again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was off too last week, so yeah, I get
Yeah.
that absolutely. Sometimes you need a break, and
It
um,
is good. Yeah.
so yeah, absolutely. But glad to be back and glad to have
Yeah.
you
Welcome back.
again
Good to
here
have
with
you.
me. Thank you, thank you. So yeah, we'll be back again. Just make sure that you're following us and following our tweets. You can support us by retweeting, commenting on our
Yes.
posts. That it goes a long way, right? We are both volunteering our
Yes.
time here. These are, we're keeping it unbiased, showing you what we are looking at, showing you all of our trades and everything. So hopefully you benefit from that. Okay, thanks everybody for joining us today. We will be back again at the end of the week for another FOMO Friday, and Bits of Wealth will be doing some streaming as well. So thanks for tuning in. Have a good day.
See you guys.